Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by Travis Santorini, Valley High School, Sacramento. Coach, thanks for jumping on today.
Good morning, morning. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
All right, let's dive in. Let's take us through your background. How'd you end up coaching? What was the process like for landing your first head job, first assistant job? How did we get going? What were the steps along the way that brought us to Valley High School?
Yes, sir. So initially my coaching journey started when in high school when I was playing at West High School, that's in Tracy. I had a freshman coach. His name was Coach Tom. He really went out of his way to make sure I was taken care of, and he actually coached my sister, I think, the previous year. So we already had connections to each other. And long story short, we were dealing with something in our family that he went out of his way to show me that he really cared about me as a person, not just as a player. So the following year, when I went up to JV, I felt like it was my duty to give back to him what he gave to me. So I just helped him a little bit and quote unquote helped him coach the freshman team. And I continued just to do that throughout my high school career. And then that's really where it all started. And then I didn't really get my first actual coaching position until I went to college in Fresno. I ended up coaching at Buchanan High School. I don't know how many people are aware of what the Clovis sports are like, but it's a whole nother game out there. So I was blessed to
Texas.
be. Say that again.
Texas.
Yeah, it's a whole nother world out there. But I was blessed to be a part of that for I think it was like 4 or 5 years. I would spend some time as a JV assistant, and then I eventually took over as a freshman coach. And then from there, I went on to get my first. I was going through my teaching credential program at the time, and then I moved onto the coast. That's where I got my first teaching job over at Lompoc High School, and then along with that, I became the JV coach there and a varsity assistant. I got that through. I actually coached with the varsity assistant at the time at Lompoc. He coached with me over at Buchanan, so that's how I got in there. And I was there for a year, and then I ended up moving to Oak Grove, San Jose, where I then got another teaching job out there, and then I ended up coaching at Oak Grove High School, that's in San Jose. I think I was there for I want to say 2 years, 2 or 3 years. I was a varsity assistant there for one of the years, and then I became the JV coach out there. And then from there, I ended up moving on to Branham High School. That's, I guess I should take a step back here. So in this time frame between Oak Grove and going to Branham, I felt like I wasn't like seriously looking, but I wanted to see where I was going to be at in terms of trying to get a head varsity job and kind of get a sense of what that process is like. So I started interviewing for some of those. Obviously didn't get any of those, but I ended up being and during this time too, I was after getting a lot of no's, I was getting a little discouraged I felt sorry for myself for a couple of days, but I just got back up on the horse, kept going, and I ended up at Branham High School, which at that year we had a lot of great players there. We have some guys now that 5 of those guys are now playing at a junior college. We made a deep playoff run. I coached there with Coach Josh Potter. He's over at Kenyatta College now. Great guy. And during this time too, along with coaching at Branham, I also started doing some recruiting for San Jose City College with Coach I out there. He's still out there. Great program. And then so I did that for another year. And then eventually, long story short, Coach Potter wasn't going to be coming back that year that I was coaching with him. So for a little bit, I was in a sense the interim head coach. So I was in the running for that. But when I met who now is my wife, we thought about it long-term wise, even though this is a great program to take over, it wasn't going to be realistic for us as far as like buying a house and our long-term future. So we ended up going up to Sacramento now, where I'm at now. And then that's where I got my first yes to being a head varsity coach over at Valley High School, and now going into my second season running the program.
Perfect. So going into year two, year one, first time head coach. After that, extensive background and experience and preparation. What did you realize right away that you still needed to figure out?
Just coming into the program and taking over the program, I was made aware that we were going to have a tough time being competitive. And coming from very competitive and high level programs, when I was told that, I didn't, I guess I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. But I didn't really realize until I was actually in it how much of an uphill battle it was. And and I'm used to coaching a certain way and using certain verbiage and language when I used to coach my players in the past. And I had to adjust my, the words I use and assume that the players didn't know what I was talking about. Even it was like, to me, basic concepts like ball screens, and just having to really teach that and teach everything, assuming that they didn't know what I was talking about, even if it was, like I said, even if it was something super simple.
So dive into that a little bit more in regards to why you think that was the way it is, how your awareness that the fundamental concepts and knowledge wasn't even there, and how you adjusted to meet that. I'm also curious about what aspects of running a program you had to figure out on the fly, because ultimately you may feel that you have a good foundation and you've been at a bunch of different places, but each site is its own challenge. So I'm curious what you realized and what you can offer others that, like, hey, these are the things I thought I had under control, but nope.
Yeah. Yeah. So as far as trying how I guess what I did to get around that, how I realized what I guess the skill level was like. The community, the Valley community, is in a lower income community. They don't have a whole lot of resources. There's not a whole lot of like basketball camps, or there's really not any as far as I know. Maybe there's one at one of the community centers, but there's just not a whole lot of resources out there. And right now, the community is not seen as an athletics, like it's not super important to them because it's the community has a lot of things that they deal with outside of school. Athletics is like on the back burner, right? And I think it stems down to the kids, and the coaches are the coach from I'm getting a sense that a lot of the coaches in the area are there for now, and then they're going to be out in a year or two. And for me, like I, especially because this is my first head varsity coaching job, and the way I am as a coach, like once I'm in something, I'm all in. Like I'm going to do it until I feel like I can't do it. I can't give anymore in terms of helping the program reach its full potential. Right. So, and to combat that, I'm really doing a whole lot of, now I'm bringing in, this is now going to be our third basketball camp. We had one in last winter, super successful, just teaching kids basic concepts, just jump stops or basic skills, jump stops, pivoting. And then they learn a little bit about what we do on offense and defense. And then, so we had a winter one, and then we did a summer one where it was a little bit of the opposite, where they're still learning those basic drills and stuff, but it was definitely more drill based versus the winter one's more like a play based type of camp. And then in that sense too, resources to the community and bringing in some college coaches that I know, junior college coaches, and then I actually got some guys, not players, hopefully in the future, but some Sacramento Kings people come into the camp to come speak to the kids and just really expose them to, uh, I guess, different sides of basketball that they've never experienced. So I guess I don't know if that really answers the question, but
Yeah, sure. That helps them get up to speed and you're laying a foundation for the future. And I'm still curious about programmatic and organizational and administrative things that you ran into that you were prepared for, maybe not.
yeah.
But these are the things that I think people who are chasing
Mhm.
their first jobs, right, think it's about basketball, and it's not really
Yeah,
about
yes,
basketball. So I'm
it's
curious
definitely
about that.
yeah, so running a program, and I felt like I was pretty prepared for, especially for somebody my age. I'm about to be 30 this year. I feel like I'm a little bit further along than most people my age. But I was blessed to be a part of what I mentioned before, some really great programs, and seeing how, our coaches, how my coach at the time ran things. One of the biggest people that had a huge influence on just showing me how he does things and giving me the extra responsibilities. And because he always knew that was being a head varsity coach was my end goal. But his name was Pat Guile over at Buchanan High School. And how we had mentioned, like, Clovis sports is a whole nother game. Like, we start coaching these kids from when they're kindergarten. And so I started trying to bring some of the same stuff as far as like camps, but as far as like the logistical stuff, he did show me how he scheduled games. He did show me how he organized these camps. And then I did take some stuff from Brandon, our coach over there. He uses this website called Riser. It's a great resource for that to get kids signed up. But scheduling games, that was to me like a straightforward process, emailing coaches and going from there. But I felt like I was pretty prepared, and I had some good mentors along the way that really helped me out and helped me prepare for the position. But coming in, it was definitely it definitely did seem like the program was, I guess, very scrambled, if I had to describe it. There wasn't a whole lot of organizational stuff going on. It seemed like from what I was getting from the people or at Valley, people at Valley telling me, and how just stuff like how the kids on campus were conducting themselves in the program.
So talk to me a little bit about what you've been able to glean and take and use from the various coaching mentors in your life. Doing the math here, you've been at about 7 different stops in 12 years. So you've had an opportunity to be around a bunch of divergent thinkers, so to speak. So I'm curious what you took, what you let go of, what's framed, how you approach this, and what you can point to specifically.
Are we talking about like logistical stuff or like basketball side of things?
Your call, man. Whatever you think is appropriate based on what you were able to take from, say, Coach Tom, from Coach I, from Potter, from all these guys that you worked for.
Okay. Yeah, Coach Tom, I think from he definitely showed me, and I felt like growing up I always had a desire to help people. But he showed me as a coach at the end of the day, yes, we're trying to teach you how to play basketball, but at the end of the day, most of the kids, at some point their careers are going to come to an end. So if I'm not doing my job as far as helping you out just as a person and trying to teach you how to be a responsible adult who's eventually going to have to be in the workplace and know how to operate within a team and those types of things, he really helped me see that side of coaching and really brought that out of me as a coach. As far as like Coach Guile over at Buchanan, he was a workhorse, man, and he did a whole lot for the program. He made sure his players were taken care of. He made sure that our coaches were taken care of. And one of the things that I really took from him too was just building in relationships with your players and with your coaching staff, because that's extremely important. We all have goals and we all want to get to where we want to get, and he went out of his way to just hang out with us coaches. We used to do like coaches retreats and things like that, and that's something too that I would like to do eventually when we got the resources to do it. But taking that part of it from him, and then also I was really big into at the time, and for most of my career, I was really into dribble drive stuff. And Clovis, that's like almost the end all be all out there. So that really, I guess that was what I was really into for most of my coaching career. And then just pressuring the ball a lot, and just teaching how just specific, like just even like fundamentally skills, like bringing it down to where how he teaches his players to close out, how he wants to deny, how he wants to help, and how he wants guys to rotate and communicate. And that was another thing too, and just showing how hard getting how players to play really hard and communicate. That was something that I really took away from him too, and Coach Potter over at Branham. He was really good at building relationships with his players. I also thought he was very great at the X's and O's and drawing stuff up on the fly. So I was behind his back when he was doing those things and seeing what his thought process was as far as like when teams were doing certain things, how he would draw up these plays, who he would put in these positions in terms of what their skill sets were like. And then Coach I, he was also great at building relationships too. And he does like little stuff like this is one thing I took away from him, and it's a small thing. So what he does, no matter if they're starting to work out or they're going into practice, he does. Everybody goes around and fist bumps each other, and it's a small thing, it helps build culture. I feel like it does, and because a lot of successful teams, and this might sound funky, but a lot of successful teams use a lot of physical touch, like high fives and fist bumps. And I know in one of the previous podcasts you mentioned that I think you guys hug each other, something like that. So that was something that was very the idea of it is small, but it can really impact your culture. And because just like doing things like that, like when kids have a bad day at school or whatever's going on in their lives, something just like checking in with them and hey, how's it going, fist bump, can really pick up a kid's day.
So, have you discovered anything on your own that is transformational in that way that you believe in outside of the fist bumping? Is there anything else that's unique that you would offer others?
Um, that's a good question.
And while you're thinking about it, the other thing that I'm curious about, because it comes up all the time, you mentioned it like 5 or 6 times there in that rundown, is the idea of building relationship
Mhm.
and how you go about that intentionally, especially as a new coach coming in year one, as you go into
Yeah.
year two. What did you learn through year one that you want to do differently this year? When thematically, like the X's and O's and the tactics are great, but you keep coming back to relationship.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like specifically that I've figured out on my own. I think it's just as far as just building relationships wise, it's really just talking to kids every day. And it's easier for me because I'm an on-campus coach. I'm a teacher, but really just talking to them each day. Hey, how's it going? How's your family? How's your parents? What's going on with everything in your life? And that's really just how I build relationships. And I guess in a sense, I also too, even though they don't always necessarily like it, but holding them to high standards and making sure that they're doing everything that they need to do outside of the practice and outside of the game, as far
So
as like getting
so
their
what does that look like? Give me examples so that other people maybe who aren't aware that's part of the job can implement that.
yeah. So what I do specifically as a teacher, I'm always one. It's conversations too, but I'm also always we do study halls on Tuesdays and Thursdays after school before we roll into practice. And they're in there obviously doing their homework. They're going if they need to, they go to tutoring, but we're in the computer lab. They're knocking their stuff out, and then I'm checking their grades usually. At least I've been doing it like every week or every 2 weeks, just staying on top of them. If I need to go talk to their teachers about this is their grade, what's going on. If it's behavioral stuff, that's also something that I'm really on top of. I definitely I email all the teachers and all the staff. Hey, these are the guys that are in the basketball program. Let me know grade wise how they're doing, if they're struggling, if they're having attendance issues, if they're behavioral problems, and I just get on top of that right away. And then other ways, if they, I do also have a requirement. So California's requirement is 2.0 and no more than 1F. What my requirement for these guys is to just hold them to a higher standard is to me, it's very doable. 2.2 and then no D's and F's. And if they fall below that, then they have to be with me again for lunch study hall. They have to be with me during lunch on Tuesdays and Thursdays on top of just a team study halls after school.
Good. No, I appreciate that because I think what happens, everybody's situation is different. So when I was in Sacramento, I had a similar deal where we had study hall. The kids had grade checks. They had to bring me every Friday.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't get them, we were running all the
Yeah.
things that you need to do to ensure, number one, that you have a team, but number two, that you are helping these young humans learn the skill set they
Yeah.
need to be successful once the ball stops bouncing. And
Mhm.
And that's different from where I'm at now, where I don't need to do any of that stuff because of the academic expectation here and what they're dealing with. So
Yeah.
ultimately, it's how are you assessing where you are and what the
Mhm.
need is that has nothing to do with being between the lines. What other things have you found throughout your career that are some areas on the margins that people can pay more attention to?
Can you clarify? I'm not sure if I understand what the
Yeah,
question is.
so you said at Valley, right? It's like athletics aren't currently driving the car, so to speak, where at
Yeah.
Buchanan they
Okay.
are, right? And there's going to be some systems and processes in place at different sites that you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about, right? They're self-fulfilling things. But, right, there may be some things at Valley institutionally that are done really well that you don't have to worry about, so your energy can
Mhm.
go somewhere else. So I'm curious as you think about all the ways in which you help facilitate growth and programs at all these other sites, right? What are some of the other things that maybe you don't have to do right now at Valley because it's taken care of?
That's another good question.
Let me help you with this, right? So there's top level, low hanging fruit,
Yeah.
fundraising, not taking care of at Valley. You need to figure that one out. Academics, not taking care of at Valley. You need to figure that one out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there's
Yeah.
some other things that I don't know, like Buchanan trying to run K through 12 programming. You don't need to figure that out at Valley because the district's not set up that way, right? Ultimately, there are some things that have been taken off your plate, but there are a bunch of others that you've had to figure out because that's what the need is.
Yeah. I think just trying to, I gotta really think about that one. That's a good one. Things that I need to.
It's all good.
Wow, I'm ready. This
We'll
one's
come
really
back
coming.
to it.
Yeah.
Think about this one. In the meantime,
Yeah, that one's really good.
do you have any coaching failures that have informed your growth that you lean on as you move forward?
I think, I mean, it's not necessarily from the first thing that comes to my mind. It's not necessarily like from a basketball standpoint. How I mentioned a couple of years ago when I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe when I really started to look for my head job. I got a lot of no's along the way, and it was never really about what my experience was like because at those times I had a lot of experience already, and it was the feedback I always got was it was usually because the coaches that got hired were already on campus and or they were already on staff or whatever the case was. So from that, yeah, I felt bad for myself for a day or two. Um, and the last one that I really thought I was going to get was back in San Jose, or I guess I should say Santa Clara. But that one I was really thinking I was going to get based on my conversations with the people there. And then when I didn't get that one, really hurt me. uh, but I from that like I feel like I've always been a resilient person, but knowing that it wasn't about hey you don't know basketball, hey you don't know this, you don't know that, but and just knowing that I had to be patient and know that my time was going to come when it was my time and when I was ready for it. And maybe at those times, like I thought I was, maybe I wasn't. But really, just staying resilient in those, just as a person and as a coach, and it definitely comes, especially too, like when you're running programs where everything is not set in place already, like where I'm at right now, and there's going to be a lot of uphill battles along the way, and just as running the program, it's the biggest thing that you deal with all the time. You're always having to deal with different parents, and oh, I got to order this, and it's going to take this long. I don't know if I'm going to get in time. Just small things like that. But there's always an uphill battle along the way, and just learning how to work through those things, and I guess helping me become a better person and as a better coach.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you hit some on the head there that sometimes when you're interviewing for jobs, it has nothing to do with you. You might be totally qualified and totally prepared, but the circumstances around that site in that moment
Yeah.
might not be in alignment with what you're bringing to the table. I got a buddy who's dealing with a situation right now where there's a long-term coach that they went their different ways, and there's some unrest in community. And so the idea of bringing somebody in a week before the season starts to deal with that shrapnel as good and prepared as you might be as a young coach that's inexperienced and doesn't necessarily have any head coaching experience to come in and deal with that shrapnel, you're almost being set up for failure. So it's like,
Yeah.
how do you find someone that has experience that can stand on business, at least for that first year, to deal with the noise that's already there that has nothing to do with the people interviewing for the job?
Yeah. And that was, now that you say that, it makes me think too. Yeah, all the cards were already stacked up against, just in terms of where the program was at. And I will say, or at least from me personally, I feel like we've come a long way, because I'm the type of coach where I come in with a lot of expectations. Whether or not those expectations are actually realistic, I'm a type of person where, I if I don't set high standards, then what am I really doing? And I'm not, if I'm not pushing you, then I'm not doing my job. And I think previous years before I got there wasn't a whole lot of the expectations going on, and it allows the kids to, when the kids are told you're gonna only be this, you're this, you're that, then they're not gonna ever get better, right? And the program's never gonna improve, and the net program's never gonna be. But I'm coming in where, like, yeah, things are this way, but that doesn't matter to me, and I'm here now, and I'm gonna try to improve things as best as I can by doing all these camps, by holding you to high standards. And this is another thing I probably forgot to mention is we have something that really guides what our culture is like. I call it our core values. There's 5 of them. Being a student over athlete is pretty straightforward. Get your grades. Hard work and discipline is one. Just going out of just when we got to run, touch the line. If you're like half an inch away, be disciplined, right? Sacrificing and serving others, just not even necessarily from a basketball standpoint, but just small things like opening doors for people. That's a big thing I noticed, like at Valley. I'm just like, I'll be walking through into the gym and kids are like right in front of me going into the door, and they slam the door in my face. And I'm like, what? Just small things like that. And then holding each other accountable. Accountability is a huge thing to me. Kids and myself, like along the way as a coach, like we all make mistakes, right? And it's just about how you respond to those mistakes. Do you continue to make those mistakes, or do you learn and grow from those things? And then the last one being communication on and off the court. Obviously on the court, on defense, we got to communicate, we got to rotate, I'm closing out, I'm help side, whatever. But off the court, it's just telling them, hey, at the end of the day, some point you're gonna be moving out from your parents' house and you're gonna be on your own. You're gonna have a job. You have to be able to communicate to people, right? And it just, with them, it starts with their grades, a D right now or an F or whatever the case is. Go talk to your teacher. Don't email them, right? Go to your teacher, talk to them. Hey, what can I do? And just really setting those expectations. That's stuff that I talk about all the time, that really, I feel like, has really pushed our culture in the right direction. And we're definitely heading I feel like, in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that you have worked to establish common core values and you hopefully are messaging those and you're living those out. And those are the standards you're keeping, right? So it's, people aren't holding the door for me. Cool. How are you teaching that? What are you doing intentionally that is highlighting the things that you're asking these guys to do in regards to them living these core values out? Can you go into that a little bit? Are you sitting them down? Are you doing classroom lessons? Or is it just like what happens at basketball?
Most of it's just talking to them, but they see me on campus, and especially as staff and teachers, we're always under a microscope, right, by the students. And especially for me, as everybody on campus knows, I'm the basketball coach on top of being a PE teacher. So just being aware of what I'm doing as the adult. I'm constantly, yeah, just obviously, like, we're just a small examples. So we're talking about opening doors for people. Like I do that all the time. Like when our teachers are coming through doors, when my players or my students or whoever is coming through, I'm opening doors for them. When I see trash laying around in the gym, drives me nuts as a person. So, but I pick up trash, and I'm doing a lot of things that while yes, they're small ideas or things that we don't always notice, I try to be mindful of doing those small things so that my guys, when they see me on campus or when they see me at practice or wherever they see me, oh, if coach is doing this, then maybe I should probably, you know what I'm saying? So just setting the example and being a model for them in that sense.
Okay, so I'm gonna push back a little bit. How are you creating challenges, games, etc., to embed the behaviors you want to see. So you made the comment about touching. So hey guys, contest of the day. How many high fives can you get before practice today during school? How many pieces of trash can you pick up? How many
Mhm.
doors can you hold open? We did something at one point that in hindsight wasn't very smart, but at the time I thought it was a good idea when I
Yeah.
was at El Camino, is that we had a charge game where you would get points for taking charges in the hallway on your teammates during the day. And so, like, how are you thinking and trying to teach these lessons? Because you just mentioned it's great. Like, you can model it, but they're not following you around all day. And if
Yeah.
these are the things that you want to see translate into your atmosphere as a basketball team, right? How are you incentivizing this in a way in which they're actively thinking about it, as trivial as it might be? Saying
Yeah.
thank you to your teacher. It's ultimately, I'm going to check with all the teachers, and whoever got the most thank yous at the end of the day wins, and you don't have to run line drills or something like that. Have you done
Mhm.
anything like that? Have you tried anything that's like outside the box to get the result you're hoping to achieve?
First, I when you mentioned that whole thing that you did with like them taking, that's pretty funny. I like that. I like that idea. It's not probably not the best idea, but in my mind, it's funny. But yeah. But anyway,
In my mind, when I was your age at that time, I thought it was a great idea.
yeah,
Once I
yeah,
became the AD and I have a little bit more risk management perspective, that
yeah,
wasn't a great idea.
yeah. I was just like, oh, yeah, probably not the best idea, but anyway, yeah, yeah. First thing that comes to mind, and it's like a smaller, I guess, a smaller thing that I do when they take charges in games. We always that's a big thing for me is like taking charges and sacrificing your body, and because we got to play that way to compete. But when I tell the guys, whoever gets the most charges in each game, you'll get a Gatorade after the game from me. A free Gatorade, just stuff like that. And that really, they really, for whatever reason, even though it's like a small reward, they really actually buy into that. And we'll be down, like last year was a rough year, but we'll be down by 30, 40 points, and our guys are still taking charges. Not necessarily because of the Gatorade, but just because it's something that they know is expected of them and they know that's the culture. But really, most of it is just like in practice when a guy talking about like physical touch or something, or just recognizing each other's successes. When a guy, let's say we're scrimmaging or whatever we're doing, and they get a good pass and they're able to knock down the shot, if I don't see them acknowledge it right away, then I'll stop the scrimmage. I'll blow the whistle. Hey, how did you get that shot? And they're like, we'll call him Tony. Tony passed me the ball and he knocked it down and he gave me a good pass. I was able to knock it down. I'm like, all right, so let him know. And I put it, I guess for the team, I put it under a microscope for everybody to see and hear, hey, this is what coaches' expectation is. And when they know, so that when they, in a sense, make that mistake, of not acknowledging it to their teammates, then everybody can learn from that and they all see it in that way so that if one person's doing it, then it eventually starts stemming off. And even just telling them like, go high five your teammate because he gave you that pass that allowed you to knock down that shot, right? Just constant reminders about them doing it, even though at times they do it on their own sometimes. And I just always recognize it too when they do it on their own and just reinforcing those positive behaviors that when they come.
Yeah, no, and that's it's carrot or stick, right? It's like you're trying to help them figure out what's important, and you want to build sustainable behaviors through
Mm-hmm.
conditioning. So your Gatorade deal, we have a championship wrestling belt for taking
Mm-hmm.
charges that we give out at the end of every game. And ultimately they get to keep it until the next game. And so thinking about how you value and score those things that are most important to you, I think is a coaching hack that we don't use enough. How would you say, or what is something that you have most recently changed your mind on in the world, in life, as a coach, as a teacher, as a partner? Like, how would you, what's something where it's, hey, I used to be dug in over here and believe this.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm over here, and here's why.
Typically, as a coach, I was definitely coming from Clovis. Everybody, or for the most part, everybody plays their man to man, and we're all ball pressing, and no one really plays zone out there. That was 5, 6 years ago, maybe when I was there. I don't know if it's changed, but um,
It hasn't.
okay, yeah, I was always like man only, because that's how I like to play. I like to be all up in your face, all up in your grill, like trying to turn you over and all that. So I didn't really play between then and maybe in the last 2 or 3 years. I wouldn't say I was like totally against zone, but it would to me that style is more of like a passive style of playing and laying back and I guess in a sense an easy way out. But now seeing I do see the value, not that I didn't ever, but I do see it more in the value of playing some zone. I do definitely am still more of a man type of coach, but we do play some 1-3-1 a little bit where I'm at. That might change a little bit this year, but I'm definitely more open to that and in spurts. Not definitely not the entire game. That's not how I like to play, but I'll do it in spurts to throw teams off. Um, I also, and I think this is, and I feel like I've always been uh, this way. I've always been open to it, but especially now, like where the world's at now, being open to having female coaches on the men's side. That I actually recently just hired a female coach, and coming up, like when I was growing up, like I never had no female coaches, so I guess I was just never really exposed to it. And I guess I was not like I was never against it. I just was skeptical because I never was exposed to it. But now, especially now, we're like where the WNBA is at, where the just where women's empowerment and all that stuff is at right now. It's definitely something that I want to incorporate into where our program's at, and because if we're going to change things, then like I want to be, I guess in a sense, progressive with it, right? Um, so
Well,
that's
it's
definitely something.
it's if there is somebody that can add value
Yeah.
and can lead
Mm-hmm.
these young people, why not? I got a female coaching boys water polo right
Yeah.
now, and it's been one of the greatest things we've done, right? I had a female football coach for the last 8 years, right? Two different
Mm-hmm.
ones. So it's the gender piece. We can go in the weeds on that, but I just think it's like how many men coach women's sports, yet how often do we have the opportunity to do the reverse and support that and embrace that?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, there's going to be challenges that come with that, but to me, it's just if they know the game, they know how to coach. It doesn't matter what the gender is, and we just everyone's buying. We're going at it, no matter who's your coach.
No doubt. And I think I don't want to get in the weeds on this, but I would say this. The WNBA is a better approximation of what a high school team can actually be like on the boys' side than watching men's college or the NBA basketball. So why wouldn't you try to steal from a situation that is actually similar to what you do?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's wrap with this. When you think back across your professional journey and you look at the seeds you've planted, are there any that you can go back now 10 years in and look at an anecdote or a situation where, your ability to teach the game of basketball had nothing to do with maybe success that one of your athletes has found?
Yeah, the one that comes to my mind is when I was back at Buchanan. I think this was when I was a freshman coach. I had a kid coming in. We had a kid coming into the program. I'll just call him Anthony. Anthony came in and he was a foster. He was a foster kid. He was living with his aunt. And this is when he was just coming into the summer and we were doing summer ball and all this stuff. His aunt had reached out to me, and I literally had known him for maybe a month or two at this point. She reached out to me like, "Hey," or no, this was during, maybe it was during the school year. I forget when, but anyway, his grades were in the dump. He was acting out at home and at school and all these different things, and she was basically asking for my help. So then I went out of my way to, and this is when I'm in college too, and I'm going through my credential program and all that stuff that I was dealing with. I went out of my way to go to his house, help him out with his homework. I took him to Fresno State, showed him the campus, and like, hey, this is what I want for you to go to college, you eventually get your job, whatever his case may be. And I was trying to be that male role model for him and show him that I really cared and give what I got from my freshman coach. And at that time, before I started doing all this, he was heading in the wrong direction. And I nearly had to I almost had to cut him too at one point. But we had to sit down and talk, had a real conversation about where he was heading. And then now he, from what I get from, I still communicate to him here and there. But from what I know, he's got a job now. He's working hard. I think I want to say he might be doing like a trainer or something. So he's doing pretty well for himself. I think he does like some bodybuilding and he's doing a whole lot of things now. And he's told me, and I never, when I do things, I don't ask for anything in return, and nor do I expect it. But I think it was random one time. He like hit me up on Instagram. He was like, "Hey, coach, I want to let you know I appreciate everything you've done for me. You had a real impact on me. Those types of things, and that really hit me hard because I want to help you. I don't expect anything in return, but when you hear it, it really like reaffirms everything that I believe in and that I want to do for kids. So that was a huge thing for me that really I really connected with him for a lot.
Yeah. No, and those are the moments, right? Those are the things that when you're at your wits' end, that it's like, oh, I am having an impact. And it's not even about how many games you win. So I think it's always important to go back and catalog those moments and find your successes, even if that doesn't show up on the left side of the scoreboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate you taking the time today, Coach. I know it's early on a Saturday morning, but thanks for jumping on.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me, coach.